life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you. Oh, hey there.
Oh, hey there.
I saw you were about to open, but I was like, you always open. I want to
Okay,
open.
you open.
Yep. Oh, hey there. That's all I had.
That's not an opening. They're waiting. Tell them what we are.
This is the Connected Life Podcast.
Why are we the Connected Life Podcast?
Because we're talking about all things connection.
Yeah.
Welcome. We're so glad that you're here with us. My name's Abby, and this is my sexy hunk of a hunkness, Justin.
I'm your sexy hunk of a hunkness. I'm a hunkness. What is a hunkness?
I don't know. I just like to throw lots of words
Makes me think
together.
of the Loch Ness Monster.
The hunkness monster.
Hunkness monster.
Oh, you're cute,
That's
and I love
Abby,
you.
Something if you don't know Abby very well and you're getting to know her.
Yep.
She makes up a lot of words.
I make up lots of words, but I feel like I make up words that
does.
people can easily understand what the meaning would be.
You're your own
Hunk of hunkness.
You're your own Merriam-Webster dictionary, and I like that about you. It's very interesting. One of the beautiful things about Abby is her dyslexia. She legit has dyslexia, and
It makes me very quirky.
it does. I mean,
Like I never feel like I'm comparable with the people around me because I'm like, there's something about my brain that works totally different than yours.
so like even when you speak, like you're an unconventional speaker. Everybody loves listening to you speak, but you also like. You're not TED Talks material.
I'm not linear.
If they expect refinement, that's not you. And that's what makes you amazing, though. It's real. Because I'm like, oh, she gives people permission to just be themselves.
Oh, that's what I hear every time after I get done speaking. They're like, if you can do that, I could do it. I'm like, thanks, I think.
But I actually love that about you.
Yeah.
It's endearing because you don't have to be perfect. And I think that that's something that I've loved about you inside of marriage is that you don't always have to be
I
perfect.
will say, I think I embraced, lots of people try.
I mean, how many times do we go out in public? I'm like, you look homeless today. And you're okay with that.
True.
Both me saying it and the reality that you did look homeless.
It's true. Can I just tell this story?
Oh yeah, please.
One time when I lived in LA, I was driving, and when he says I look homeless, there are times I legitimately do. And
oh yeah, there's crazy clothes and your hair's everywhere. I mean, it's not like, oh, you need to fix one piece of hair. It's just like,
Okay, but so I was in LA and I'm driving the car and I feel this strong intuition. And if you listen to our podcast, you'll hear we are both very intuitive led. And we both are really connected to like an inner knower.
Yeah.
And so I feel a strong intuition. I see this woman pushing a cart and I think, I need to go help her push her cart, which is a funny thing to think. Like, what am I going to do? How far can I push her cart? Like, I don't know. But I feel it so strongly. I drive back and forth in this area up and down the street because I'm like kind of trying, like, should I do this? Should I not do this? Is this a real thing that I'm feeling? And finally, I decide that's it. I'm just going to do it. So I pull over. It's a super shady part of LA. I pull over, I park my car, and then I go and I'm like, can I help you push this? And she's like, yeah. And so we start walking. And I'm a little concerned because it's super shady. I'm like, however far I walk with her, I'm going to have to walk back by myself to my car. And so we're talking and she's telling me about this place that she lives that she can't get to. And I honestly think like, I don't know that she's fully connected. Like, I don't know if what she's saying is real, but I think whatever, I'm going to try.
She feels a little off her rocker.
She feels a little off her rocker, but I think I'm going to try. I'm going to call this place she's talking about. So I call this place she's talking about and I'm like, this woman says she's lost and that she lives there. And she did. They were looking for her, which is crazy. So they're like, oh my gosh, thank you. Can you keep her there? We want to come get her. It was near Christmas. And they're like, it's a Christmas miracle. Her family's been looking for her.
I'm sure.
And it was like this magical moment. That's not the story I'm telling. It was like, and that's why I say follow that inside voice that tells you to do things, even if it feels scary. But so she goes into 7-Eleven and I say I will watch her cart because she's very concerned about losing her cart. And so I'm sitting on the corner of the street with her cart, and this guy comes up to me, and he looks like he's going to kill me, maybe rape me. Like,
you're terrified.
I am terrified. It is a shady part of town. It is dark. And he comes at me. He's looking at me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And I'm like praying. I'm like, I helped a homeless lady. God, please protect me. I did what you said. I'm trying to help people. Don't let me die. This is not the moment. And he walks up to me and gives me money. He gives me a wad of cash. And I'm like, no. And he's like, no. You need this more than I do. And then he walks away, and I'm like trying to argue with him. And then I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my gosh, did he just think that I'm homeless? Like, I must not look. Then a car stops, pulls over to the side, and gives me money. I'm like, no, I'm not actually homeless. I don't need this. And they're like, no, you need this money more than I do. So all that to say that you might be right when you say I look homeless.
You do. I love that about
you. But the thing
So,
is I don't care. Like, my best friend growing up, she used to be embarrassed every time we went out in public.
I'm not embarrassed.
You've embraced it.
I've embraced it. I've had a handful of times where I'm like, I'm going to go stand over there. But honestly, I've never, like, I don't have that weird, like, oh, my wife needs to look a certain way. I mean, I lost my hair.
Right. Yeah. It's all gone. Where did it go?
Where'd it go?
On your back.
I don't know. I'm going to find it. Oh, there you are.
There you are.
Back hair.
Chest hair.
Ooh.
Ear hair. Nose hair.
Keeps going
eyebrows.
lower. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
So speaking of homelessness.
Wait, hold on. I do just want to say this.
Yeah.
I gave her the money at the 7-Eleven
and then her family showed up
and they were so happy,
happy.
And it was a Christmas miracle, and it was beautiful.
I should write a story about it.
But and then to also wrap up what you were saying before is I was such a mess as a human growing up. Like, there were so many broken things that I didn't think perfection was an ideal. So I never strove for it. And that's something you love about me.
It's helped me not have to be perfect.
Imperfect.
Yeah.
Yep. So what are we doing today?
We're going to continue our conversation about our first year of marriage.
Woo!
And my meltdown as a man.
Yes.
And speaking of homelessness, we're going to jump. This is part 2. So if you didn't hear the last one, go back to that.
Yep.
Stop. Go back right now. Stop it.
Stop it.
So speaking of homelessness, this first year of marriage, as we're traveling and we're just spending through all of our cash, and I don't know where my next job is going to be and how that's going to happen. I literally back up, like Abby jumped out and spent time with this woman on the side of the road. When I lived in LA, I spent a lot of time on Skid Row and Santa Monica. I would just go spend time with homeless people. I would see them on the side of the street.
Good stories.
I'd pull over, give them money, have conversations. They would cry. We, like crazy things.
Yeah.
Best stories, best moments of my life. I loved it. And I loved the people. I loved how eccentric they were. I loved how much they lied about why they were out there. They'd be like, okay, you know me now. The real story is why I'm here.
You know me now. They would tell you.
I would go to the same spot, same people often. I created friends everywhere. I loved them. They were my people.
Yeah, and you actually have a great story of feeling like you encountered God through them.
I encountered God the most through spending time with what society deemed the most unworthy people inside of our so which is interesting because now fast forward, I'm in marriage.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, not working, not knowing where money's going to come in at, fear starts overtaking me about the idea that I'm never going to be able to provide for us.
Oh, yes.
And at least before marriage, I was like, well, worst case scenario, if I run out of money, I can live on a friend's couch. But that's not
right.
That's not so practical when you have a wife.
Although I thought I would.
Well, you absolutely would have. But in my head, I'm like, you can't ask your wife to live on someone else's couch because you can't take care of them. Oh. So I start having this overwhelming fear of becoming homeless.
Oh, yeah, because you're just counting down the money as we spend.
To the point where I can't look at homeless people. Like, we'd pull up to a stop and there'd be like a homeless person, like walking up with a sign or something. I'd be like, I can't look. And I would just be like, get away.
And it's not actually because you don't love them. It's because you're so terrified.
It's because my fear all of a sudden and I felt like
it's funny because I've heard other men share that fear.
Really? Yeah. Yeah.
Which it was so illogical to me.
Yeah, that we just...
Although I will say I have a lot of compassion. I think anybody could end up homeless with the right circumstances.
Absolutely.
Happening.
And I was in the right circumstance situation that it could happen. Especially because it was 2008 and jobs weren't readily available. And I didn't know that yet.
When is the next thing going to come?
I didn't know that until I was done traveling for the first 6 months.
Right.
Which we're going to get into that conversation. But so literally I thought, if I look at you enough, I'll become you. That was literally went through my brain.
This is how wars start. People are like, I'm terrified I'm going to become you. Get away from me. I hate you. I'm going to demonize you so I feel better about me.
So I was in total avoidance. And a lot of times we as people, we project out onto other people's lives what's going on inside of us. So anyways, so I'm at the homeless fear point.
Yes, you had a lot of fear. And I remember having this conversation. This one so tickled my soul. I walk into the room and I'm like, you're feeling really down and overwhelmed. And at this point, we had come back from the road trip and we were living in LA. Mm-hmm. And you were looking for jobs at that point, even though I had like intuition told me, nah, I think it's going to be about a year that we don't work. Somebody had told us in the Bible, they used to have the Israelites would stay home from war for a year when they got married, which was really to procreate. They needed to be able to make kids. It said that so they could learn how to please their wives, which really meant like, hey, go get a lot taken care of, start making babies, like each other, spend enough time with each other so that when you're gone for years at a time at war, that you still have a connection.
Yeah.
And so I remember hearing that and like, my intuition was like, I think this is going to be a year.
Yeah. And I, you know, and you had a few conversations with me about the idea it was going to be a year.
Yeah.
Like it evolved into that. Because
totally.
I kept freaking out. 3 months turned into 4,
yeah.
5, 6.
You had a
6 months
breakdown
on the road.
every time.
Every time another month passed.
When are you just going to accept this?
And I was always fighting the season that I was in.
And the clock. You felt like a clock was ticking down.
One of my greatest fears was a clock.
Yeah.
An imaginary clock in the back of my head.
And it was that you weren't getting to your career. If we were taking...
I'm falling behind with every moment that I am not working at my career. Because again, I originally was in LA and film school and stuff like that. I'm like, at every moment that I'm not working, I'm getting behind.
Everyone else is progressing.
They're making
I'm
money.
Come back and I'm going to be...
They're building their lives.
They're getting a better resume. They're like, there was a constant... I remember the clock being your biggest battle.
Daunting, taunting voice that wouldn't get out of the back of my brain. And so I felt like I was a hamster on a hamster wheel going nowhere.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I'm there thinking like, this is the best. We're getting to work out all of our issues and we're fighting all the time.
And you would have to remind me, you'd have to remind me like daily. You'd be like, Justin, we're going to look back on these days and you're going to think these are some of the best days ever.
Totally. And I'm like, you're going to look back on this time. We're going to be busy. We're going to have careers.
So busy.
You're going to look back and be like, oh, it would have been so nice if I could have enjoyed.
Remember when we didn't have responsibility?
Yes. And I was like, you're going to miss that you missed this.
And I do.
I was right.
You were right. I'm going to tell everybody right now, if you have a wife, she's probably right.
I was going to say more like if you're in a down season, know like that it won't last forever. Enjoy what you have. They don't last forever.
Yeah. And that's the thing about seasons.
Yeah.
Life is seasonal.
Uh-huh.
There's a time for grieving. There's a time for joy and pleasure and happiness and celebration.
Winter, fall, spring, summer.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you can connect with that reality, life isn't going to be forever. We can stay in seasons. We can fight to stay in them. And most people like have that fear because they go, yeah, but my parents were the same people their entire lives. That's because they fought really hard to stay.
That's good.
It takes more energy and more work to stay in a season than it does to surrender, let go, and allow your season to transition you.
Boom. That's a meme right there.
Yeah. So
we're done.
Mic drop.
We're done with the podcast.
Enjoy that episode.
That was all you needed. So anyway, you would have breakdowns, and I remember thinking, now I viewed success quite differently than you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I
viewed success as like anytime we are taking any step in a good direction, like, oh, well, we just had to work through a fight. Well, that's building the muscle of us learning how to work through fights. That will eventually mean we work through fights faster. That will eventually mean we have a better marriage. That will mean that when we do have our jobs and careers, that our marriage won't get in the way of it. So I'm building all of the time thinking that anytime we have an emotional victory, anytime we do something different than our parents had done it, or anytime we made any kind of progress, I'm thinking this is success. So I could feel successful every day.
Yep. And so we as men, especially, but humans in general, both men and women, but men have this big thing with the word success.
Oh, yeah.
Women really find their comfort and their value inside of relationship. So they're always like pining at men to love
And not
them,
all.
choose
That's
them.
a broad generality. Especially
Absolutely. But
now
I'm saying,
because there's women who just want to be successful.
yeah, there absolutely is that.
They don't
And
care about
they've bought
relationships.
into masculinity's big brokenness.
Yeah.
But foundationally, we're talking. So all of you who are offended, I just generalized. Let me get it down to this. Somewhere at the core of femininity is I really want to find my identity inside of relationship.
Yeah.
Men have turned towards I really want to find my identity inside of what I can do or perform.
Yes. Which creates a lot of breakdowns because
Right.
men are aimed at something that isn't relational.
Absolutely.
And women are aimed at relationship.
Yes.
And so that divide can create a lot of problems.
A lot of problems inside of that. And so again, yes, as there's a crossover into buying into, all right, well, what does success mean? Masculinity, I think, first and foremost.
And I should also say to not generalize men because there's a lot of men that are more relationally built.
Absolutely. But in the generalizations that we
Yes.
are, the broad stroke, here we have men are more drawn to a definition of success that equals performance.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there, like my big fear inside of me is I'm going to be a failure. I'm never going to be successful. And it was a broken record on repeat, not just for the first year of marriage, but for the first 3 or 4 years of marriage.
Absolutely.
That I was battling inside of me. But the first year of marriage, it really came to the forefront and I had to look at it.
Well, and I think that's true with anything that's a pillar inside of you. It normally takes, I've seen this in the clients I work with, in my interns, in my personal life. It normally takes 4 years to change a belief. It doesn't mean it's 4 years of the same fight. The first year you're like having so much pain come up with
Just
the belief.
smashing you in the face.
And then you get better and better at choosing a different truth, a different belief system. And eventually it gets to where it naturally comes out of you.
Yep.
But it may take 3 years before you start to see, like 4 years before it just starts to come up without you having to choose to feel like you have worth and you're going to be successful.
Absolutely. So I met with a lot of ongoing tears and meltdowns.
Oh, yeah.
Where I'm like, I'm such a failure. I'm never going to figure this out. I'm falling behind. What am I doing with my life? Am I ever going to become anything?
Yeah. All of those, and I actually think
over and over again.
I think every person hits an identity crisis.
Absolutely.
We do it at different times, but especially coming out of college or trying to figure out what career you're going to do. In every season, there's a little bit of or if you just transition, whenever you transition seasons, I think identity gets put back on the table again.
Yeah. And I think that humanity in general deals with what's the point of life.
Yes.
At one point or another, you're asking, what's the point of life? Why was I created? Why am I here?
Yeah. Because I can build up self-worth and self-esteem in one area, and then that season transitions, and all of a sudden I have to ask the questions again and face the fear.
Over and
Do
over
I have
again.
worth and value?
So Abby was really pushing back on this redefining success. And so that was the first time I'd ever had anyone be like, what if success is just learning how to be present here in this moment? Mm-hmm. What if success is learning how to just connect to me? And so that foundationally started lowering so much of my anxiety. That's something I had control over. See, and again, we've talked about 2008, the 2008 bubble that's hitting.
Oh, yeah.
And one thing that started happening in 2008 is everyone starts learning oh yeah, you're actually really out of control of a lot of external things.
Oh my gosh. Uh-huh.
It was like a life tsunami, hurricane, earthquake hit all of America, and all of a sudden people are going bankrupt left and right. They're losing their homes. They're actually becoming homeless. People who seemingly had quote unquote successful
who were
positions.
so wealthy.
Their marriages are now falling apart because it was all founded on all kinds of money, opportunities. And it was all good until it wasn't good.
And everything got taken away from everyone.
Yeah.
So interestingly enough, now that we look back, we can be like, the whole country was probably in the same identity crisis as you.
Yeah, at some level.
Some level.
There was something happening inside of that.
Yeah.
And so I'm in the middle of this identity crisis and
you can't get a job.
And I can't get a job because now I'm in LA.
Yep.
And now I've started going through my Rolodex.
Yeah, and you had a great Rolodex
of people in the entertainment industry. And one after another, I'm like, hey, you got any work out there for ... And they're like, I don't think you understand, dude.
Yeah.
There are no jobs in this city.
Yeah.
everything's falling apart for everybody. And I'm like, okay. Oh, I picked a bad time to quit a solid job that didn't pay much, but it was solid. It was there.
It was dependable.
Yeah, it was still there and it wasn't going to disappear. And so now all of a sudden I'm faced with the reality that all I can do is manage me.
Yep.
There is nothing that I can externally grab hold of any longer.
Yeah, it was like, if I am putting all of my hope in outside things, I'm going to be hopeless right now.
That's how the balance again, the balance for life is the idea that we're wildly out of control and we're fully in control.
Yes.
So I am in the driver's seat of my heart, my soul. I get to manage that.
Mm-hmm.
You can take me and lock me up and throw away the key.
Quotable, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. So profound.
So
But you can lock me up and throw away the key and I'm stuck in a jail cell, but I still get to manage my soul. And
right. Nelson Mandela, he wasn't the one.
But he was a prime example of managing his own soul.
But it was the poem he read, Invictus, which is, I am the captain of my ship. I am the captain of my soul. And now I'm butchering it terribly.
You just butchered Invictus.
And
hopefully someone writes in and corrects you.
Beautiful thing. But what I'm saying is he read that in prison and it was the same idea. I actually have power still in here.
In my worst case scenario. So
yeah.
we're wildly out of control of external circumstances, but we can manage our heart and we can dream. Mm-hmm. And so I was learning how to become a dreamer.
Yeah.
And I was learning how to become a lover of the moment in front of me. As I was having this meltdown in my Rolodex and not being able to get a hold of people, and Abby was pushing back on me, I would have these conversations daily when I woke up. And I'd say, God, what do I do? Just show me what to do and I'll do it. Which my question of show me what to do and I'll do it was really show me who to call to get the next job to start the process of making money.
Yeah. Show me how to get my bank account rolling again.
And him and I very quickly were not on good terms on my end, not on his end. We were not on good terms because he would tell me, I would just hear this inner voice inside say, learn how to come alive. Yeah. And that would piss me off every time I heard it.
Oh, absolutely.
I would just be screaming. I'd go on walks. And at this point, we're living in Burbank, California, in a brand new condominium.
Yeah.
That
fell apart.
Fell apart because they couldn't sell it.
Yep.
So they were renting it to us for next to nothing. So I was living in a place that nearly I could nearly afford today. Right?
It was actually still more expensive than what we pay now.
Oh, absolutely.
But it was in LA.
It was crazy, but it was still dirt cheap in comparison to
in LA.
In LA at that time. So we were given this magnificent brand new home and everything, and I'm trapped inside of this space trying to figure out what to do. And I would go out on these walks in Burbank and just like break down, cry, and yell like, "Learn how to come alive. What does that even mean? That's the dumbest thing. You're not telling me anything. That's not helping me."
Yes.
And
because your agenda for this season was to jump into a career.
Yeah.
But the agenda for that season...
Give me money.
Yeah.
Make it rain.
I want to build something.
Yes.
You didn't understand that you were building something.
I was building something, and it's long-term. It's part of the abundance mindset is we'll pay a price up front for something, a deep price.
Yep.
And that price may not... The fullness of the payoff of that may not be for 10, 20, 15, whatever. 10, 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
Try to get those words out. English, Justin. But the point is this. I start having this tug of war completely inside of my soul that I'm like finally after, what was 8 months probably of life together, probably at the 8-9 month mark, I'm finally breaking.
Oh, and
like fully
you did.
Breaking and letting go.
Yeah. And this is the process. We're actually supposed to grieve, and grief should end in acceptance. We should be able to let, like, any season that we're out of control in, you have to grieve. Like, this isn't what I would choose. This isn't what I wanted. I'm angry about it. Yep. I'm in denial about it. I'm depressed about it. But you should actually work all the way through your emotions to acceptance. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is what it is.
Yep.
And I'm going to be miserable if I keep fighting the season I'm in.
Yep. And I think that like probably at that point I started getting miserable because I realized I'd wasted 8 months of not just accepting.
Oh no, the clock beats me again.
Oh no.
My nemesis. You know, your nemesis is like, you know, the crocodile in Peter Pan that comes with the clock ticking it. That's like your Captain
The clock.
Hook.
I wonder if that's actually like a
I
part,
bet that's a
part of the
symbol.
allegory inside of that is the clock ticking in our
talking
lives.
about Peter Pan staying a child. That's deep.
I just maybe got that.
I
I gotta
never
go
did
watch
either.
Peter Pan now.
Oh,
That was good.
You are brilliant.
No, you are.
I love you.
We are.
Yeah. Oh, I came up with that. That's funny. I felt emotional. Like I like.
You
felt
kind of
like,
came up with it, yeah.
Yeah. And then you.
And I saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I pulled it out. That was great. So, anyways, aside from Peter Pan, I'm finally settling in.
Yeah.
And I think that this man, like this is part of our journey of brokenness, being broken. Mm-hmm. We need to be broken.
And women.
I
think everybody needs.
Well,
to be
I'm trying to
broken.
talk at the men.
Okay, great.
You know, people, we need to be broken. But we do. Everyone universally needs to be broken in one way or another. And going back to a submissive posture and going back to the idea if you've been of trust and because we talked about this a couple episodes back, maybe I can't remember, in the trust and submission process
and the abundant mentality. Like I know when we were in the most pain means our beliefs are at the surface. So your belief, nothing's going to work out for me. I'm never going to have a job that I like. I'm never going to create finances. All of those beliefs are at the surface. Pain brings your beliefs to the surface. And lots of times people think this pain is proving my beliefs true.
Yeah.
But what we did instead, and this is where you get to be powerful, like we're talking about Invictus, you have power over you, which is in the moment where my beliefs are being pushed up, I can actually exchange my beliefs.
Yep.
So that's what we began fighting for in that season was, no, I have worth and value. No, good things are going to come in my future.
Yep.
No, doors and opportunities will happen. No, I'm going to find the path that I'm meant to be on. No, there is a good, hopeful future for me.
Yep.
It is actually in the time that the beliefs are being pushed on that you have the most ability to change the way you think.
Mm-hmm. And far too often, because people are feeling pain, that's actually the pain just being brought to the surface. Again, it's not happening to you.
Yeah.
But they believe this is why. This is a statement people say. Why is this happening to me? Rather than, and it's a pushback. It's like, why is this happening to me? I don't want this. Rather than saying, how is this happening for me?
Yes.
So people
Absolutely.
believe this is happening to me rather than this is happening for me.
Yeah.
And so when we embrace a perspective of, oh, how is this happening for me? The pain that I'm feeling, what is this situation actually pushing a button on inside of me that's meant to liberate me rather than destroy me?
Yes. And so all of the fears and pain were getting brought up, and it wasn't unto you just having a miserable year.
No, not at all.
It was the great purging.
It was the purging of the misery that was always existing under the surface that I was blind to, that I was numb to.
Yeah. And here's the interesting thing is that year was extremely painful for you. But when you actually look back, your life was much more painful.
Absolutely.
Consistently than that year.
Absolutely.
And people are scared of having a year like that where all the fears get ripped up and all the lies get pushed on and you have to fight to create new truths and you have to fight to create new beliefs. But actually that short pain can liberate you from the pain you've been in forever.
And that pain is really the removal of the medication.
Yeah. Exactly.
The medication that's kept us drowsy and numb to the pain that exists. So it's just like, it's actually extracting the medication.
Yep.
All of a sudden we're having like dialysis on our body and the medication is going and we're like, oh, we're in pain suddenly. Nope, it was always there.
Yep.
And so for me, all of a sudden, I'm getting liberation.
Yeah.
Out of this experience.
Yeah. It was a really significant, but this is the thing. Pain will either crush you or make you.
Yep.
And I saw you choose. I'm not going to surrender to this. I'm not going to let all my fears bully me. I'm going to fight back. I'm going to grab a hold of truth. I'm going to cry out the pain that I have. I'm going to acknowledge what has been going on inside of me. Oh, actually, I've had a hopeless monster my whole life. I've never had to face it before like this because there's always been things that hid it or that could feed it so that it would leave me alone. But now I'm going to actually face my hopeless monster.
Yep.
I'm actually going to do it. And it was a very beautiful thing. And if we look back on that year now.
Well, let me say this. I realized I didn't have a problem with a hopeless situation. I had a problem with hopelessness.
Yes.
And so as I'm talking
So
about
good.
these things, there are problems in your guys' lives where everyone are listening right now and you're going, I have all these problems in my life. And you have to assess and go, is it actually a problem? Is it actually a hopeless situation, or is it hopelessness I'm battling with? Is it actually a life-breaking situation, or is it a life-making situation right now?
Yeah.
What is really being brought up? What is the light shining on inside of my soul? Fear, self-hatred, insecurity, hopelessness, loss,
Yeah, because what
fear
was
of loss.
happening is this year just exposed the hopelessness that had always been there.
Absolutely.
You had always had hopelessness. It wasn't that you were now afraid because you weren't working, that your career wouldn't work out.
I just couldn't run from it anymore.
You just couldn't hide it anymore.
Yep.
Your whole life you were afraid
Yep.
that you wouldn't have a career and a future that
Yep.
would be good.
And that thing would have haunted me. Like now, 10 years later, that doesn't haunt me. I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up, and I'm okay with that. I'm at 36 years old and doing all the things that I do. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up.
Yeah.
I'm just having fun.
We're going on the journey.
I learned how to play.
Yes.
But part of it is I had to learn how to be present. And that was as learning how to come alive began, that conversation led me, it was an invitation for me to start going, okay, what does it look like to be alive?
Yeah.
What does it look like to embrace life right in front of me? And so I even...
Do you know what I remember?
What?
I remember like you couldn't play. We had nothing to do, right?
Nothing.
Except like hang out with each other and work through stuff.
Yeah.
That was basically...
We'd play cards a lot.
We played cards a lot.
That was fun.
I remember you like playing video games for like an hour and then feeling so guilty. I should be doing things. We need to be accomplishing things. I'm like, we literally have nothing to accomplish. Like you, and this is not me advocating that you should have been able to play video games for the whole day. I'm against video game addictions, but you weren't even close to that. It was just that you couldn't rest.
I couldn't find something to just chill out in fully
Yeah.
and just be like, yeah, I'm just playing. So I started asking the question, like, all right, I want to discover the beauty all around me.
Yep.
So I started asking a question like, God, where are you?
Yep.
Where do you exist all around me? Because part of coming
on this
alive
walk.
was finding the beauty all around me. And so I started seeing the goodness of God in all of creation, like the people that I was encountering, enjoying them, being present with them.
Oh yeah. It started where you actually began to be like, in a day, you'd be like, today was a good day. I had this great conversation with this person at the grocery store.
And I started to admire construction, buildings, creativity, art, wherever it was. I started seeing like life all around it. And then I started seeing life in nature, which I'm going to talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
And the profoundness of that and what that led to.
Totally. Just tell it now.
Tell it now.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting.
Don't make them wait.
Oh, but we want to keep them till the end. Mm-hmm. It's a movie trick I learned. Build suspense. So Abby and I one day we're in Burbank and we're out on a walk as per usual. It was like a Wednesday, midday,
Middle of the day.
People are out having lives and
Yep.
this is my life. And I'm actually embracing the joy of it. I'm like, I get to just spend time with my wife and we get to talk and laugh and we get to contemplate things.
Around.
Like I finally was settling into a lot of like, this is where we're at.
I will say we read lots of books.
Oh yeah.
During that season.
We didn't just do nothing.
Yeah. We did it was like one big inner healing counseling year.
Yeah.
We were learning how to change our beliefs. We'd
spend hours working out some pain inside of our soul.
Yeah. We walked through all kinds of childhood things.
Yeah.
We got to know it. So it wasn't like when we say nothing, we're saying
there was nothing in the ways of I wasn't working a job.
Yes, but it was like working a job.
It was working.
If anybody has gone through a
job.
crazy deep inner healing season where everything is raw every day, that's like a lot of energy.
It's a lot to take on.
Yeah.
So, and as we're walking on this journey, I don't know why. Now that I all of a sudden become very hippy dippy in this
just
process.
like me. Look at.
Aww. And
I feel love clouds. You feel up trees.
I feel up trees. So we're walking and I see this tree and I'm, as I'm contemplating life, I'm like, this tree is easily 100 and some years old, and it's in the middle of this sidewalk, and they didn't apparently want to cut it down, which was nice of them. And it's been there longer than all the people living in the houses, probably. Right? And I'm thinking, what is this tree's story? What was it like to have them come build concrete around it? And what was it like to have the first family move in? And it was just this weird, interesting, like, whoa.
Sorry about that. That was my timer.
Yeah, your timer went off.
It's because I have to eat every 2 hours on this stupid diet that it's not a diet, it's a cleanse.
Yeah, whatever.
I'm sorry.
So back to my story. Now that your phone's interrupted everything, you gonna eat your kale and your kale and avocado over there?
I have to.
I have to do it. We're not even going to pause.
Oh, okay.
You just ripped that wide open.
I'm so sorry. I just have to.
This is what happens in life. There's major interruptions.
You just surrender to them and keep going.
Yeah, okay. Well, you sit there and just pile that in your mouth. You just let that go right down your gullet, and I'm going to continue this story. So, I'm back in this story, and I'm imagining in my head that this tree having all of these encounters, which is just odd at some level, I guess. But I go up and I put my hand on this tree. And as I put my hand on this tree, here's my hippy dippiness, guys. All right. So I may lose all my listeners over this, but I feel like I can feel the life force inside of this tree. Like I'm connected enough to my body and my own soul and my being that I'm actually there enough to feel the essence of life that's inside of this tree that courses through everything all around us. And all of a sudden I have this almost like a download. It's like a computer download to my brain. And I see this entire story of this tree. And I see this entire story of all these characters around this tree. And I look at Abby and I'm like, Abby, I am supposed to write a book. I suddenly am like, I have to write a book. I know what that book is. It's a book about a tree. Here's the characters inside the tree. Here's the basic things that happen with the tree. And she was like, oh, that story's already been written.
Oh, this is such a bad moment for me.
This is such a bad wife moment.
We have to tell everyone, though, because every wife has bad moments.
Yeah.
I was so supportive of you when you were afraid of homelessness, but I was not supportive of you when you told me a tree story.
She goes, that book's been written. I think it was called The Giving Tree. And she's like, it's The Giving Tree. And I'm like, it is not. My book has not been written. It is not The Giving Tree. I have a different book. She's like, no, it is. So I don't know. About an hour later, we're in Barnes and Noble and ripping through books and we get The Giving Tree out. And I'm like, this is nothing like the book that I'm writing. But she literally was like,
I was not. I'm sorry. I take full
You
ownership.
might as well have just looked at me and said, that's the dumbest idea ever. Don't waste your time.
I know. It was.
And it very much was projected like that.
It really hurt you too.
It did. No. It did hurt me, but it also fueled me. It took us a while
to work through that.
I'm going to be honest. It fueled me.
Did it?
It did. And here's how it fueled me. I do remember thinking, I'm going to show her. I'm going to write an amazing book. And I'm going to stick it in her face and be like, there, I did it. And you didn't believe in me and I did it. Which was also how most people do life with their parents.
It's so true. And that's how lots of great people create great things is they're like,
I'll prove you
wrong. Yeah. A little anger fuels a lot of things.
Uh-huh. So, but in that moment, I had this download for this book, which I wrote.
Because you were present. Mm-hmm. And you weren't thinking about all of the other things.
I wasn't. It was all cleared. My entire life had been wrapped around producing for the purpose of just being on the hamster wheel.
Yeah. The funny thing is you felt like you were in the hamster wheel because you weren't producing.
Yeah, just going over and over again. And I realized
you had actually been on the hamster wheel your whole life.
And that's how most of us do life, because we don't pause long enough to face our fears, that we stay on the hamster wheel of life, just doing what society says we need to do. Yeah. And society tells us this is what life has to look like. Marriage has to look like.
Yep.
This is what your future has to look like. And there was this divine interruption in my life that saved me from looking back and having a lot of regrets, actually.
Yeah, it was amazing.
So anyways.
You ended up writing the book. It is amazing. If you haven't read it, you should. It is, I get overwhelmed. We weren't meaning to plug it, but I'm going to now because I'm a proud wife because I switched from being against you to for you. Uh-huh. But the book has changed so many people's lives. I mean, kids, it's like we had a parent just recently tell us.
Let me back up and tell you what the book's like.
Oh.
The book's name is The Tree of Life. There was this idea of this tree, this acorn named Oki, who gets planted in an apple orchard. And he spends his entire early years on this journey of waiting for the next step, the next day, believing like, oh, one day I'm going to make apples. And that's my whole purpose. And
one day I'll be successful.
And there was this interesting thing that happened for me is I felt like I suddenly was supposed to write this children's tale for adults. So it's a literal like novel.
Yeah.
An allegorical novel that actually begins to almost like showcase all these deep hidden life truths that are happening to me in my first actually 3 years of marriage.
Yeah. Yeah. It was the unfurling of how to find identity when your outside world isn't giving it to you, and how to have hope and how to enjoy the adventure.
And the tagline was
trust it.
Learn, come alive where you're planted.
Yep.
And so you were saying kids and
it's
adults.
just, I mean, it's amazing. Kids love it. We had a parent tell us the other day, it's the only book their kids will be quiet for while they drive in the car. Because their kids are just glued to the story. And then we have multiple like 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds who it so deeply impacted them. They've gotten tattoos from it. They've thrown the book against the wall because it made them feel something. We've had psychologists write in and say that it's the best explanation of shame they've ever had. And they make all of their clients read it because it gives such an idea of understanding what the voice of accusation looks like.
We've had man's men in their 80s and their late 50s come to us.
Men who don't
tell
even
us about
like
how
reading.
they cry. Yeah, don't even like reading. They cried, they sobbed,
they laughed.
Yeah.
It's an adventure, and it's fun because you can read it to your kids and it's great for them, but it's deep heart truth. It's like a C.S. Lewis novel.
Yeah, so it's kind of like my $100,000 film education paid off, but not yet. It helped me write that book.
It is an amazing book, but the point is not the book. The point is...
And you can go to justinstumball.com and pick that up if you want.
The point is actually that there was something being done in you that would create something from that season that you were not aware of. And not only that, we ended up birthing our jobs.
Our entire job is based on everything that happened in the first couple of years of marriage, and especially foundationally that first year.
I mean, there's so many things we had to learn. Justin had to learn, and me, how to follow to pray and be like, how do we work through this? Because we had so many messes we had to work through. And all of a sudden we got tools to help each other get healing. And then those tools ended up being the things we use now to help everyone else.
And so nothing's a waste.
We were practicing on each other.
Yeah, we were. But nothing has to be a waste. I mean,
we didn't know.
Here's the truth. We may never have made these businesses from it.
Totally.
It still
would have been worth it.
Would have been worth it because it would have been a foundation for having a good connected life. Podcast, the connected life.
The connected life.
But there was still
Always
a payoff. And if you're looking to find out the payoff from every season, you'll find it.
You will find it.
It will benefit you.
Yes. So this is the thing that I would tell people. We look back on the season now that you thought nothing was happening, and actually so much was happening.
Absolutely.
And it ended up being something that launched us. Now, it wasn't like right after that it launched us. It was an unfolding. I think all of our stories slowly unfold, and we get really impatient. Like, we don't want to wait, but it is worth it. And there was something in that season that died and then came back new. Like, your version of success and your identity and your fear and your hopelessness. There was a death that happened and a new life that began, which was aimed completely different, that connection now mattered.
And what it was leading to was something that people, there are three things in life that people are really after at the core of everything, which is really love, joy, and happiness.
Yeah.
A mixture of that, expressions of that. And I was finding out what happiness truly was.
Totally.
I was figuring out like foundations to the secrets to living a life of happiness.
And thriving.
Not
because of outside circumstances.
And so one of the things that we started asking ourselves is, what is the gift in every season?
What's the gift in today? What is the gift in this season?
And every painful story that happens, you can ask, what's the gift in it? It doesn't mean that this is happening to you to give you a gift. It means I'm going to extrapolate the gift out of the most painful losses and stuff. I'm going to go, what is a gift for my soul that's going to change the way I see life, the way I do life, the way I feel, the way I relate to the world around me? When I was deathly sick, the gift that came out of it was deep levels of compassion for people around me, because I chose into it.
Yeah.
And gratitude.
Yeah. Every season you can use, like, and this is what I've done. I've had a lot of hard things happen in my life, and every season I'm like, I'm going to take this and I'm going to launch from this.
Yeah.
This season is going to give me I'm going to take all of the good out of this season and I'm not one of those.
That can only happen when you embrace it instead of fight it.
Yep. Which is finding your power in every situation.
Yep.
So, this is our challenge for you, our homework for you guys today.
Before you get to that, I want to say one more thing, because they're going to wonder, like, what happened?
Oh, yeah.
What happened? So we're going to give you the what happened to wrap up our first year.
Okay.
So one of the promises I heard internally is that I wouldn't have to go into debt for this experience. And we're coming up on May of 2009.
Yep, which was a year. We were coming up on the exact year date of our marriage.
Yep. And so we're about a month and a half out before that. And I know
we're going to hit zero.
We're going to hit zero. When I go and I pay for my rent that month in cash.
So expensive.
Which was so expensive. It was going to be the end of all of the cash that we had. We officially wouldn't have enough cash to pay off debt on the card. It was all we're going to go enter into debt. And one of my greatest fears besides marriage was debt.
Yep. That's like insurmountable.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't live in debt. I pay everything off. Debt is not okay. Like, I just didn't believe debt was okay.
Which, in case he's not actually relatable to you all, I came into the marriage with debt. So.
Which I paid off.
No, we both did.
We did.
We'll have a conversation about money. You did not pay it all off for me, because you said, I want you.
I did. I paid part of your debt,
Yep.
but I said, you need to take care of this. And that's right.
You helped me get a budget.
Yeah.
And you helped me figure out how to do it myself, because you wanted to empower me to do it.
I did. Yeah. And that was a really good story we're going to tell about in the future. But as we're wrapping up on this, and I knew that I could keep hearing that echo. I didn't know what I was going to do for a job still.
Nope.
But I kept hearing that echo. It's okay. You're not going to go into debt. So about a week before I go to pay the first of the month rent, I get a letter in the mail from someone. I open it up, and inside the letter is a check for a very large amount of money. And they said, I was just doing life today, and I was praying, and I felt like God laid it on my heart to give you this amount of money because you're supposed to have it. They didn't have any idea where our financial situation was. They'd never outwardly just gone out of their way to give anything like this. They were a special relationship in my life. Yeah. And I was like, what is happening? And literally it paid off our rent. It would pay off all of our debt, and it would give us enough money to move because the other thing came up inside of our heart.
Yep.
And was, I felt like we needed to move back to Montana.
To live with your parents.
To live with my parents in this next year. And it felt right. And even though that was another on my list, one of my greatest fears was moving back home, working for my dad.
Yep.
And doing the business that he was in, and not getting to go live my life because I felt like that would destroy me.
Yep.
And now on top of it was the fear of having to do it with a wife. And what does that mean about me as a man? And does that make me a loser if I'm living with my parents while married in my second year of marriage?
To be honest, I didn't think we were supposed to do that. I told you that. I didn't think we were supposed to go to Montana. I remember doing it like, we're going to go here for 2 weeks, but my plan was that we would move on. That we were just visiting.
I didn't know that.
No, we talked about it.
I don't think I remember that. Maybe I compartmentalize that. Yeah. But I knew that we were supposed to.
Every week that you stayed, it felt like a little part of my soul died. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to talk through the season in Montana later. But it was a trust journey for me and you. But the beauty of what we're saying is the first year, our finances lasted for exactly 1 year and moved us to Montana. And I will say, this just as a side note, money, it has many times led me into a path that I would not have chosen if it wasn't for needing money, that has ended up being exactly where I was supposed to be. We were supposed to be in Montana. We'll talk about that season later, but if we hadn't run out of money, I never would have gone there.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
And there's
have.
been multiple times I've taken jobs.
I didn't initially do it because I like, there was a part of me that wanted to fight in LA and just keep fighting and figure it out. But I was like, no, I'm supposed to go here. And yeah.
So this is your homework is to think about how this season is meant to be a gift for you.
Mm-hmm. Like, and where are you not being present?
Yep.
Like, what are you kicking against inside of this season? Like, oh, I just keep pushing back rather than I'm willing to face this or deal with this, and decide that you're going to settle in and learn for yourself what it looks like to come alive. Mm-hmm. What does it look like for you to be fully alive in this season, regardless of the circumstances?
And if you fully knew that the season would end.
Yeah, and you were going to be taken care of.
And you knew that a new season was coming, how would you relax? Like, how could you enjoy this moment?
So good.
Yep. So that's it for us.
So jump on iTunes if you've been affected by anything we've said.
Or even if you haven't, would you just jump on anyway?
Yeah.
Put a 5-star review on there. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
You can't tell them what to do, but
yeah. But go subscribe. Give it a review. Rate it. Because it's a really big deal, especially right now.
Help gets the word out in the first 3 months. It's a big deal.
Big deal.
The amount of subscriptions.
And jump over to facebook.com/The Connected Life Podcast. And go ahead and follow us there. And on Instagram, Abby Stumval on Instagram and Justin Stumval on Instagram.
Yep. That's all we have to say, guys. Bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.